there, it's Jane. I hope you're doing great. Thanks so much for stopping by. CZ Designs came out with an All the Things stamp and die set, and I fell in love. And I happen to have this Lawn Fawn Speech Bubble in my stash that actually matched it perfectly. So I made two different cards. One has a colored background and one does not. And I wanted to show you how really easy peasy they are to make, and I hope you like them. There they are side by side. The one on the left is all white, and the one on the right has a blue card base. So you can figure out which one you like the best. This All the Things stamp set has so many amazing things and has matching dies, which I adore. But I did fall in love with the speech bubble because I had the matching Lawn Fawn Speech Bubble background die. So I cut my Neenah Solar White cardstock to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I attached that with some purple tape to my die. This is how I do my background dies. Make sure that it stays straight. I don't like to cut my paper bigger because then that wastes paper. And here is your finished die cut, your background. I then cut my cardstock 4 1/4 by 11 and scored it 5 1/2 for a top folding note card, and the background fits right on top. Today I decided to use my Catherine Puller inks, and they are all linked at the bottom. I have 4 colors. All of my supplies are linked below, or they are linked on my blog post if you cannot find them. I lined up my 3 speech bubbles and made sure my cardstock fit. And you need to condition your stamps before you use them with a cloth or your hand or something like that, because otherwise it's like a residue on top and the ink just pulls on top. So I used 3 of the 4 colors of the Catherine Puller inks, and Catherine Puller inks are different than others, and I really like the way they worked, and she has some great colors. I bought all the minis. I wish that she would have has a few more minis. This is not stamping exactly right. You can see on the right, so I'm cleaning it a little bit more with my hand, and there we go. It stamped really well. So I stamped each one about 2 or 3 different times till I got the intensity that I was looking for. I like to cut my cardstock apart before I die cut it so that the cuts in my top plate don't make marks on my stamping. So I'm taking the die and I'm laying it down, and I'm going to cut all 3 of these with that die. I'm adhering this background to the card base with a tape runner. Typically I use liquid glue, but I tried it and the glue came through the little piercings on the background. I didn't want that. So I'm kind of visually eyeballing where I want everything to go, and I will pop up all the little speech bubbles with some 3M foam tape. And I put the green one down. That was my first marker. And I'm going to eyeball this pink one. And there's the blue one. And there you go. And that is the card, and it came out really cute. I will make a matching envelope for this one. I will take that All the Thanks die stamp, and I will put it on a blue envelope, and I'm using my embossing bag to make sure that I get rid of all the static. And I'm going to use my Brutus Monroe clear embossing ink. This is one of my favorite embossing inks. I like this one, and I also like excuse me, the Versamark. And I'm going to use some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. It's a really fine embossing powder, and it just embosses just beautifully. I'm going to make sure my heat tool is really good and hot because I don't want to melt the glue that's on the back of the envelope where you stick it down. And look how that just melts. I mean, look how, I just love embossing powder. It's just magic to me. I don't know why, I'm like a kid. But there you go. So there's the envelope there. Then I'm going to make my second card, and this one I decided to use the Gina K inks because they're new to me and I love the colors. So I stamped 3 as well, and I cut all 3 out. And then I'm going to get my cardstock samples. I cut these. I have these two. They're coral reef and sea glass, and I wasn't sure which card base I wanted to use. So I cut one of each, and I thought I'd put my white speech bubble on top, and I did trim this down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm laying out to see which ones I think I like better. That's kind of how I do sometimes with colors. I'm just not sure. I love the orange, but I decided blue was the card of the day. So I am putting down my my foam on this one, and I did use the liquid glue here, and that is when I realized that the glue kind of popped out through the dots in the speech bubble. But it did dry clear, and I do like the liquid because, again, I can move it around. And because I'm putting it on, centering it in the middle of my card base, I'd never get those down exactly right. I'm always ripping them up. So I thought, well, maybe I should just use the liquid. But in hindsight, I probably would use the tape runner again. So there you go, gluing that one down. Just going to lay out my speech bubbles again and see how they all lay out, which way I want them all to go. I will then take 3M foam tape and pop up the speech bubbles on the background. As you can see, I'm cutting little pieces in half. I sped this up. You don't need to watch me do this again. And laying them out and seeing where I want them all to go and peeling off the back and putting them on. And I didn't use a T-ruler on these. They were pretty easy to line up because I had the background to line it up with. So here's the two cards side by side, and I'm sorry that was so quick and you didn't even get to see them, but I'll have a picture at the end. So out of that same stamp set, I'm taking the Eternally Grateful, and I'm going to stamp that at the front of the envelope. I love to stamp on the front of the envelopes as well, using my Hero Arts Intense Black ink, and this is my Mini Misty. I use my Mini Misty a lot when I'm doing envelopes. And it's funny how I've just gotten so used to the Misty and I don't make mistakes and I get to re-stamp whenever I feel like it. My acrylic blocks do not get the love that they used to get. But these are the two cards side by side with their envelopes. You can decide which one you like best. Do you like the one with the border? Do you like the one without the border? Do you like the stamp on the front, or do you like the stamp on the back of the envelopes? That's totally up to you. Again, thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it, and give these cards a try.